Hello, my name is Sofia, and this is an audio version of my blog entry entitled How to Monitor Oppressive Regimes on Twitter using TweetDeck, first published in December 2022 and later updated in April 2023 to cover the new TweetDeck layout and settings. Twitter and TweetDeck as monitoring tools. Twitter is a huge social media platform where millions of users share content daily. Although many see it as a place to share opinions, get news, or connect to other professionals, it is also a valuable tool for millions living under oppressive regimes. Twitter gives eyewitnesses and victims all over the world a platform to share evidence of crimes committed against the innocent. This can be done in real time and within the safety of anonymity. TweetDeck, a platform owned by Twitter, can be used as a dashboard to monitor specific types of content. It is an amazing tool for investigators to keep track of what is happening in certain areas of the globe and collect evidence of possible human rights violations. I have chosen to use the Islamic Republic of Iran for this tutorial because it fits various criteria that will be useful for us. There is an ongoing conflict between the population and the regime, it has a history of human rights abuse, and they speak a language I cannot read because I like a bit of a challenge. A quick note before we start. When investigating and collecting data on possible human rights violation, you can expect to find content that may be distressing. I will not share any graphic content in this tutorial, but if you put into practice what I will explain below, there is some chance you'll be exposed to distressing imagery. Make sure you're comfortable with it before jumping from the theory to the practice. TweetDeck dashboard. The TweetDeck dashboard is comprised of various columns, each completely independent from each other. Columns can be spread throughout different decks, which are in turn also independent from each other. Below you can see a tiny sample of my working dashboard. Sorry, it's censored. On the left you have the decks there. You can see my first one with a solid purple box there. You can assign different icons to each to make them easier to tell apart. The gray background around the first icon indicates we're currently looking at that specific deck. You can also see 3 different columns, each highlighted with a different color. At the top of each there's a solid box with the name of the column, obviously also censored, sorry. There is no maximum number of columns you can have, although after a few dozen it might start lagging a bit. Setting up TweetDeck. Now that we know how a TweetDeck dashboard looks like, let's learn how to set it up to start monitoring content. First, you need to go to tweetdeck.com, obviously, where you will be asked to log into Twitter unless you're already logged in. Once your account is synced, you will be presented with an empty dashboard as seen in the image below, like this. On the left menu, you'll see your first deck. Here you go. By default, it will be called Personal and the icon will be a star. Above the list of decks, you can see an icon that says Add Column. There it is. This will be used to start populating our dashboard. For monitoring purposes, there are only 3 types of column that you need to know about: lists, searches, and profiles. Everything else can be ignored. Lists versus searches versus profiles. Whilst lists and profiles will focus on the users, the search column will focus on the content of the tweet. This means that on lists and profiles, you'll only see content from the specific users you selected, whereas on the search columns, you'll get results from any users as long as the content matches what you're looking for. Lists are useful to monitor content shared by a list of users. They're best for following accounts that focus on a very specific topic, such as local news agencies, local journalists, government officials, NGOs, local community groups, organized activism, etc. Searches are useful to track down content related to a specific topic, regardless of which account shared it. They can be very broad if you're just monitoring certain topics within certain regions of the globe, for example, torture in Tehran, or very targeted if you're investigating a specific incident, for example, the killing of Mahsa Amini while in custody of the Iranian morality police in September 2022. Then you have profiles. They're useful to keep track of what the specific user is sharing online. It can be combined with keywords or hashtags so that you only get results when the user mentions a specific topic. For example, monitoring the Iranian government Twitter account for when they use the word women in their communications. How to create Twitter lists and what to include. Now that we know the difference between lists, searches, and profiles, let's create our first list. We can do it either on TweetDeck or on your Twitter account. And since this is an entry about TweetDeck, let's learn how to do it on this platform. First, we need to add a new column by selecting Add Column on the left menu. On our new window, we will choose lists there, followed by a create new list as seen below. You'll get a create new list window where you can select an image, the name of the list, a description, and privacy settings. You can choose whatever you want, but the most important piece of information is to mark it as private. This will ensure that no one knows who you have added or removed from your lists. The account owners will never be informed of your actions and you remain absolutely anonymous. If you were to have your list set to public, the accounts you add would receive a notification. This would enable them to quickly block your account and you lose access to their content. We don't want that. Sneak is good. Be sneaky. Once you have decided on a name, description, and mark it as private, definitely, you click Next to be taken to the following window. You can then use the search bar to find the Twitter accounts you want to monitor and click Add to add them to your list. If you want to remove an account, you can perform the same steps but select Remove instead. Always make sure you have the real accounts and not an impersonator, or you will be getting misleading content. As previously mentioned, lists are good to monitor content shared by official accounts. You can, for example, compare official statements versus evidence we have gathered of the events. Take Iran, for example. Imagine there's a protest and users online are claiming the government used violence to disperse the population. An official government account releases a statement denying any use of violence. We may then find photos or videos showing government bodies, the police, military, whatever, from that day in the reported location of the protest, threatening and hitting civilians. We can then put all of these pieces of evidence together when writing an OSINT incident report. It's a bit like, I'm not saying you're lying, but we have proof that you're lying. How to create a Twitter search string and what to include. Unlike lists, the search option focuses on the content, not the user behind the tweet. Ultimately, it will not matter if the piece of evidence is being shared by an account with thousands of followers or by a brand new user with one tweet. Those are always the best ones. If the keywords match our criteria, we will find it. And if we can find it, we can archive, verify, and analyze the evidence. When monitoring for content on Twitter, I find it easier to stick to the where and what rule. This means that whatever string of keywords we choose to combine must have the specific location, the where, and what content we want to monitor, the what. Let's start with a practical example on how to monitor for content related to protests in Islamic Republic of Iran. First, we need to define the where and the what as such. We have the where, Tehran, Mashhad, and Isfahan, the three most populated cities in Iran. The what? The protest. Our search term will end up being something like Tehran and protest, Mashhad and protest, and Isfahan and protest. Note the and is a Boolean operator and must be capitalized, and it must be in English. But Iran doesn't really have English as an official language, does it? So let's change all of this to Farsi, the country's official language. So Tehran and protest becomes Tehran and protest, and so on. We do not want to have a column per search, or we'll end up with far too many columns. So let's put it all together on a longer string. For that, we'll introduce two new features, the parentheses and the or operator. The parentheses will divide each section like a mathematical equation, and the or will tell the search engine that you want to search for various options, a bit like giving someone a shopping list that says white or brown bread. It means that you want to receive at least one of the options. You'll be happy with either. Same applies here. You can tell Twitter's search engine something like Tehran and protest, or Mashhad and protest, or Isfahan and protest. This string will search for any of these options and give you the results that contain at least one of the criteria. And note, the or is also a Boolean operator and must be written in all caps, and it must be in English. You can even improve the string a bit more to make it use less characters as seen below. So our Boolean search with the three Iranian cities and the word protest can go from this, the one we've seen before, Tehran and protest, or Mashhad and protest, or Isfahan and protest, to this, Tehran or Mashhad or Isfahan and protest. Can you see how you'll get the same results, but the string is shorter and more concise? There is no need to repeat the word protest 3 times when you can just tell the search engine to circle through the cities one by one and see if you can find the name of the city plus the word protest on each tweet using a much smaller string. But we do not want to just monitor 3 cities, do we? We want the entire country. Defining locations to monitor. To obtain information about Iran as a whole, we can focus on provinces. The Islamic Republic of Iran contains 31 provinces, so I gathered a list to create a string that can cover the entire country. But suddenly, there's a small issue. Some of the provinces' names contain more than one word, such as South Khorasan or Sistan and Balochistan. I have no idea how to pronounce this. If we put South Khorasan and protest on a TweetDeck search, it will give us results that match either South and protest, Khorasan and protest, or South Khorasan and protest. It will not interpret South Khorasan as one string, but as 2 different keywords. We can solve that by adding the quotation marks to force it to recognize South Khorasan as one entity. If we put all of the knowledge above together, we can create our first search column targeting protests in any Iranian province. This is what it would look like in English. You can see above how we have several provinces' names in quotes to keep the keywords unchangeable. We have the parentheses, keeping them together in one set. We have the OR operator, so the search engine can circle through the list. And we have the AND operator to force it to find the word protest within the tweet. And this is what it would look like in Farsi. So this is the same as this one, but just in Farsi. We can then keep on adding terms to make it as inclusive as possible. We already have all the provinces, but only one term to match with them, protest. So let's think of other ways we could see it referred to. I often look for similar tweets to see what keywords they're using and add it to my search. In this case, we can have a list of related keywords such as protest, protests, demonstration, uprising, march, and revolution. Let's add new keywords into our search string. This is how it will end up looking like. So you can see all the provinces are there and all the words for protest. How to create a TweetDeck search column and what settings to use. Now that we have our string, let's create our first column. There are various ways to do it. You can simply click the magnifier symbol on the left menu, or you can choose Add Column and select either Search from the list of options or put your string directly onto the search Twitter bar. I have chosen to click Add Column and then Search from the list for this tutorial so we can see all the available options. At the top, we'll drop the search string we created to monitor for protests in all provinces of Iran as seen below. So if you were to just copy paste what we've done and you put it there, this is how it looked like. But there is a problem. I still cannot read Farsi and it would take me forever to translate all the tweets one by one. Fortunately, I'm not interested in any text, I want to see visual content. So let's adjust our column setting to improve our results so we only see tweets that contain images and videos. For that, we'll click on Media and then turn on the Only Show Tweets with Media option. You can select what type of media you want to see, but let's just leave it on images and videos. Suddenly, our column is filled with videos and photos of protests from various provinces of Iran updated in real time. Now we can start monitoring for any incidents related to protests. Having just one column is not enough, and as you start adding more, you'll soon realize you need to have some sort of organization, starting with the column name. By default, the columns will be named whatever you put on the search string. This is not very useful for people that do not speak the target language. Luckily for us, the new TweetDeck version allows the user to change the column name to something easier to understand. At the top right of our column, you can see the gear symbol highlighted in red below. There it is. Once we click on it, we'll be presented with more options. Almost at the bottom of the list, we'll see the rename column option also highlighted in red, and here it is. If we turn it on, we'll be able to choose a name for our search column. You can see below on the right how I renamed it to Protests in Provinces. This will be very useful once we end up with dozens of columns spread throughout various decks. Populating TweetDeck. Once we know how to create a good search string, we can apply it to any other topics following the same formula. Where and what. So what else would we want to monitor in a country with a history of being authoritarian and oppressive towards the population? I would start with the protests and arrests and throw in some torture and executions. And as we know that the protests started with women, we also need to add a column for it. Finally, let's just keep an eye on any negative mentions of the regime to monitor for population discontentment or possible future uprisings. In practical terms, we'd end up with these topics and these keyword variations. We have protests, as we've seen before. We have arrests, arrested, taken away, prison, kidnapped. Torture and executions. We have torture, execution, murdered, sentence, corpse/dead body. You have protesters/women, you have woman, women, girl, girls, protester, protesters, and you have regime, dictator, tyrant, repressive. Now we need to combine our new keywords with a list of provinces. This is the final result for each. So you have one focused on protests, so all the provinces at the top, and then all the words for protests. You have the same for arrests, you have the same for torture and executions, protesters/women, and regime. We can populate our TweetDeck dashboard by simply copy-pasting each of the strings above to separate columns and selecting the Only Show Tweets with Media option. The image below shows how my TweetDeck looked like once I was done. Within minutes, we went from no data to a huge amount of content, all very targeted, organized in topics, and updated in real time. The screenshot below shows how the first column, which was monitoring protests, contained a video of a group of masked people burning various government banners and billboards. The second column contained photos of various civilians, their names, ages, and how long they have imprisoned by the regime for protesting. The third column showed the photo and grave of a 19-year-old who was killed during a protest in the province of Kermashan. Our fourth column contained a video of the moment of an explosion targeting an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps base in retaliation for the recent mass poisoning of schoolgirls. Lastly, the fifth column contained a video allegedly filmed in Tehran in which people can be heard in the distance shouting "Death to Dictator." How to monitor specific users on TweetDeck. Sometimes it's useful to keep an eye on specific users, especially those with a lot of influence. There are various ways to monitor content from single accounts depending on what is your goal. We can create a column with just their name and track down all their content. We can specify which keywords we're looking for and only receive the results matching our criteria. Or we can select to only see tweets that have a minimum level of engagement or either replies, retweets, or likes. Let's use the Iranian government Twitter account as an example, which is this one. In order to add a new user column, you have to follow the same steps you did before, but this time select the profiles option on the add column list. There. Afterwards, you need to type the name of the account you want to monitor. Once a new column is created, you can click the magnifier icon to check out various options. You'll be able to specify which keywords, hashtags, or search strings you want to monitor by adding them to the search bar in front of the From username. If you want to monitor all content from a specific account, you're all set with just adding the From username on the column. However, if you want to target your searches even more, you can play a bit with the settings. Below, you can see two different options of targeted content from the Pat Dolat account. On the left image below, I have added a search string with various keywords that we previously used on one of our columns. It contains the terms arrested, taken away, prison, and kidnapped. This means that this column will only show tweets published by the Pat Dolat account that contain at least one of our target keywords. On the right image below, you can see how we did not add any keywords, but we want to see tweets that have a minimum level of engagement. For that, we can specify the minimum amount of replies, retweets, and likes. This information will be automatically populated on the search bar as seen below. Here it is. You can either edit it manually or just change the numbers on the appropriate areas under the level of engagement section. Conclusion. Twitter is a platform used by millions of people around the world to share evidence of crimes and/or publicly expose the inhumane activities of the government. The TweetDeck dashboard is a great tool to monitor content being shared on Twitter in real time. The possibilities are endless, and it is up to you what topics you want to monitor and what keywords you want to track down. This tutorial explains how to create search strings to target a number of issues in specific areas of the globe, how to monitor lists or individual users, and how to change your settings to better target the content you're looking for. I hope you find this tutorial informative. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but it's a great way to start creating your own monitoring stations. We do not need to wait for the media to give us the news. We can get them ourselves directly from the source. Stay safe out there. Thank you for listening. Sofia.